Stand by alert. Death Star approaching. Estimated time to fire range.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Welcome, listeners, to episode 263 of the Skyhoppers podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Ben, and I'm joined by my lovely co-hosts, Cole and Eva.
Thank you.
Indeed.
I love how everyone gets right up on the microphone for this.
Yeah.
Love it.
Hello.
Unfortunately, Dakota is ill, does not have a voice this week, some combination thereof.
Which is a bummer because they were 100% free to come tonight.
Yeah.
We simply can't win on the Skyhoppers podcast.
We really can't. It does make me thankful for having a 4-host configuration, because if it was just me and Dakota, or any one of us and Dakota, podcast would never happen. It would unfortunately never be able to happen. But Dakota's got a lot going on. It's like Dakota wants to be here.
Time.
Yeah,
right.
Dakota
And
is like a step parent to like 3 children, so
yeah, that is the root of the problem, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, no offense, children are children; they require care. Unfortunately, sometimes that comes at the expense of podcasting.
How dare they?
Anyway, we have something of a kind of a freeform episode. It's a freeform episode with a goal in mind. Kind of a life coaching episode of sorts.
Yeah.
And I, for one, am very excited to get into it.
Me too.
I feel like Dakota's presence. Yeah. I feel like Dakota's presence will be, well, depending on, actually, because I'm not entirely sure what the scope of it is yet.
The scope
but depending
is
on what the
everything.
scope. Okay, I do feel like Dakota's voice will be missed in the discussion.
Yeah.
But I think I've acknowledged Dakota's absence enough. We can move on.
And the thing too is that I will be hopefully I will try my best to update Dakota as we go, or at least give them the initial list so that they can at least participate a little bit.
See, I'm wondering what sort of list like. I hope you don't expect me to have a list. I don't have any sort of
what I'm bringing to you
has.
What I'm bringing to you is a list of books that I currently own but have not read. But I don't want us to feel limited to those books because my end goal here is to try and get into the weird stuff in Legends so that I can finally read all of the 20 long book series. So,
and see, that is the goal of our episode. Mm-hmm. We've teased it a couple times. We are going to decide maybe not only whatever reads next, but also
what I read
maybe
forever.
The trajectory, exactly.
Yes.
And obviously, this feels a little self-indulgent. Eva is, of course, only one person. But hopefully, you can take their journey and extrapolate it as the listener. If you, too, are like, I would love to get into Legends or just Star Wars books in general, but don't know where to begin.
And if nothing else, if you're a patron, you won't have to listen to me go, I don't know what to read next every 2 weeks. So
it is fairly frequent.
Public service.
The goal for me is to figure out how to get into the big boy Legends and also hopefully walk away with a list of books that I should read next so that I at least don't have to whine for a couple more months.
Well, and it's kind of sad to see that go, or would be sad to see that go, because I, for one, love it when people ask what they should read next. Mm-hmm. The thing is, what's going to be difficult is that so much of it is kind of dependent on mood, what you're looking for. Because, they're all Star Wars books, but I do think there is a surprising amount of diversity in what they're about and what they do well. And that varies. I think even I've said I'm saying it like I've never said it before, but like from timeline to timeline, it's like, well, what are you looking for from your story right now? Because that is that can drive you towards one timeline or the other if you just want to read a Star Wars book. That said, I feel like you are already, if not quite as well read as some people, knowledgeable about the canon books. So I definitely feel like that is something that I was going to put less focus on tonight.
I will say that I was looking at my, I've got my little list of books that I own but have not yet read.
Okay.
As I was making my list and looking at all the canon books, I was really just like, man, I don't really want to read any of these except for the High Republic ones right now. You know, I've got Battlefront Twilight Company. I'm just not interested right now. I've heard it's good. I'm just not interested right now because what I want is not canon. I think that's my hang up with canon right now is that I don't want canon. I want the Legends vibes. And so
Legends is full of vibes.
Yes.
It is practically oozing vibes. Well, that's fine by me because I seriously was like, I am so excited to podcast tonight because I'm going to talk about Legends.
Well, and the thing with canon too is I have been a Star Wars fan since canon started releasing books, so I don't feel lost with canon.
Exactly, that's what I was getting at earlier.
Like canon, even if I haven't read most of the books, I'm like, oh, I remember when that came out and what people said about it, and I know what it's about, even though I haven't read it. So canon, I'm like, sure, I have a bunch of ones I haven't gotten around to yet. I don't care. I'll get to them when I get to them, and it doesn't matter, because I know where they fit into everything. Legends is the real one where I'm like, I really want to be into Legends so bad, but I have no idea what I'm doing.
You look at the 200 plus books, you're like,
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Before we get too far into this, though, I mean, is there any news that
I was
we're
looking.
missing? I feel
didn't
like
see anything.
I can't think of anything.
Cole, we talked about this on Bro Skywalkers this last time we recorded. This is the calm before the storm. Like, there's not going to be a ton of news. Celebration Celebration happens in just a couple months. That's when I think the floodgates are going to open. Yeah. If they're going to open, that's when it will happen.
Yeah.
We did get a little.
What we'll have is like such and such going to be at Celebration. Is what we'll have news
right, and it's like, all right, cool. That's something Wizards of the Coast loves to do, is an announcement of an announcement. And I hate it. Yeah. I hate that. It's like, I would rather be surprised. I would rather not know.
Especially when they do them so far out, too. When they're like, hey, 2 months from now, we'll be announcing this thing. And it's like, okay. When Nintendo's like, hey, tomorrow we're going to have a direct. I'm like, cool. I've got 24 hours to be like, oh, a thing's happening tomorrow. And then I watch
exactly.
it. But when you're Nintendo like, hey, this thing's going to happen 2 months from now at a convention, good luck. I'm like, oh my god, you expect me to remember to pay attention to this convention in 2 months?
Well, you'll be at this one.
Yeah.
You will be at the Star Wars one at least.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, some news. Eva's taking Celebration with Cole and I. We will miss Dakota dearly.
I'm a sucker, and I couldn't not do it, is my problem. For years, since they announced Anaheim, I was like, I'm not going to be able to make it. I won't be able to make it. I have to make peace with the fact that I can't go. The second they put tickets back up on sale, I was a little idiot, and I said purchase.
Well, that's the thing, because for those who are maybe not interested in conventions or have never been, it's, if nothing else, it's just, obviously we all love Star Wars, and I would go alone. I would go completely alone. But it's the same thing for Gen Con, where it's like, yeah, I love games, but it's just really a great excuse to hang out with friends. It's one of those things, it's kind of the draw that it's like, okay, everyone's coming to this one place at this one time. You can just go buck wild with all of your friends and stay up until 3 a.m. talking about Star Wars. And it's like, what more could you ever need in your life?
At 3 a.m., I'm going to break into Robert's house, crawl up to you, and whisper in your ear who would win in a fight, Yoda or Rey?
Great Jedi.
And then I will throw punches first and ask questions later. Like, I will not
be wearing a Reese mask.
Yeah.
Oh, Oh my god. I think Rob Williams from Generation X-Wing made a great reuse mask once. I think you should check in with him. That was a meme. That was an old not Skyhopper's meme by any means, but the picture of Rob as a child wearing his reuse costume for Halloween it haunts my memories. It really does. Haunts my dreams. Anyway, we got a little bit of news today. Well, first, Adam Christopher tweeted some of his influences for Shadow of the Sith. One of them was the X-Wing books, and one of them was the Revenge of the Sith novelization. So, if I wasn't already hyped for the Luke Lando book, I think I am absolutely there now. And we also found out that I don't remember what the book's called, but they're doing a book all about Tatooine. And the art in it looks absolutely gorgeous, very stylized. And it's just got information about the locations. I'll look up the name here in a minute whenever somebody else starts talking.
I can't believe that they were like, what book does Ben need?
It's this one.
Mm-hmm. So is it basically an essential guide, but only Tatooine?
Exploring Tatooine.
Exploring Tatooine, yes. I think that is and it's like, it's got kind of it's definitely more of a coffee table book, I think, type thing, rather than an essential guide. And that's something that I could lament about canon versus legends, is just the loss of the essential guide. It's not something that I think they have a lot of interest in doing anymore.
Which is wild, because those things sold like candy. Like, everybody that I knew as a child had the essential guide.
So good.
I truly don't understand. I don't understand it either. I mean, we do get kind of, it's hard to say, because like you've got like you could look at the Women of the Galaxy book that came out a few years ago to Star Wars: The Essential Guide to Women. You know, like
I actually do. That is, I have that under my coffee table right now.
I'm sorry. I wanted to get that out without laughing, but I couldn't. But like, you can look at like.
I want you to know that I have thought that many times, because it's like under my table, like it's in my coffee table with like my Fire Emblem art book, and every once in a while I look at it and I'm like, this is the closest thing to a canon essential guide that I own. And I kind of like leave my body a little bit.
Yeah. And they kind of do more specific things like that. But yeah, the essential guide to such and such, I really do think it's the shift. It's the overall cultural shift, I think, or it's a symptom of this rather, of this kind of movement away from having elements of Star Wars that feel like they could just be an encyclopedia entry. Mm-hmm. And of course that is being really reductive as to what those guides were.
I also think a lot of it might be like, why spend so much money publishing an essential guide when people are just going to Google it?
Right. That's another thing too, where it's like these things were popular at a time before that was widespread, before that was the easiest way to get information.
Before the dark times, before Wikipedia.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't say Wikipedia is the symptom of the dark times that I would go for. I think there are other things. I know what your joke stands, but I couldn't help but be a little pedantic about it.
Well, actually,
yeah, kind of. But yeah, I do. I miss those, but they don't exist in that form. So I mean, even with it's kind of, for me, they were a bouncing off point. That's kind of how, and like Eva, we as people who have been reading, like really reading Star Wars books longer, I feel like we, I hope that didn't sound demeaning. I truly
No, it's true. That's literally just a fact.
Okay. But it's just like, we kind of like you with canon, we are kind of that way with Legends, Cole and I, where it's just like, we've been immersed with this for so long and saw a lot of it coming out that it's like, we know where we're going. And I don't know, we're happy to pass that knowledge on to you.
Please, I
kind of got lost there in my thought. Basically what I wanted to say, finishing up my thoughts on the Tatooine book, not so much an essential guide, definitely more of a coffee table book, because I don't think they just want to print encyclopedias anymore, which is just, I look at, my complete Star Wars encyclopedia 3-volume set over there on the shelf, and I'm like, it's criminal that you don't print these anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I digress. I understand. That's a great point about the internet. So, if there's no other news, I did hear a rumor, actually, that Fallen Order sequel will be showing off at Celebration.
Yep, I saw that as well. I really hope that's true.
I also
not
really
to
hope that's
well,
true.
actually, you guys, but I posted that rumor in our Discord about a month ago, and I think only one person responded to it.
Well, you know how you said you haven't been in our Discord in a week?
Oh, yeah.
I do that at times as well, so I probably just missed it. But I will give you credit where credit is due. I had like $30 left over after buying Elden Ring on a gift card that I got for Christmas. Elden Ring is sick, by the way. Everyone play Elden Ring. And I was like, what do I need to get? So I ordered the Star Wars Insider Fiction Collection, Volume 2, and a used copy of Fallen Order for PlayStation 4. Because
Nice.
I didn't actually own the game physically. So, of course, and I'm kind of experiencing a PS4 renaissance right now.
As you should.
Where it's like, I know, it's just like, I say renaissance as though it's not still kind of technically the current gen console because you can't buy a PlayStation 5.
It's a weird generation where like there's another generation out there, but no one can get it, so it hasn't really
they're
started
making more
yet.
PS4s. Yeah.
Mine's right there. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Well, you've had yours when you got yours probably shortly after it came out, right?
I got mine probably a month after launch, yeah.
Yeah, I know you've had it for a long time.
I've had it the entire life cycle so far.
I can't remember. Is it backwards compatible with the PlayStation 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why my PS4 is now in my bedroom to serve as the Netflix machine, because I had it out here and I don't want to get rid of it because it's the Spider-Man one. And I had it out here, and like 2 weeks ago I was just like, I have not turned on my PS4 in so long, because every time I want to play a PS4 game I just put it in my PS5. So
And now if you want to play PS4 games in bed,
I know.
you can. You
yeah,
can.
that's true. I could.
Anyway, that's the last little bit of rumor I wanted to get over with. We have a topic. We are not going to let it get pushed aside. Eva, you have if we're kind of ignoring canon, that's fine. Do you have a list of Legends books that you currently own?
My list of Legends books that I currently own but have not read is very short. It is the Episode 1 novelization, the Episode 2 novelization, Rebel Dawn, Tales from Jabba's Palace, and then Rogue Squadron and Wedge's Gamble. That's what I've got.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to
But
you didn't say
here's the
what
thing,
you've
though.
read as well.
Right.
Ooh, what I've read would be the first 2 Han Solo books,
Mm-hmm.
Darth Plagueis. I know there's more. Hang on, I gotta pull up my Goodreads. You guys gotta vamp for time.
Well, what I was gonna say was I'm gonna pretend you didn't say the last 2, or Rogue Squadron, Wedge's Gamble, because I feel like that kind of just the whole conversation being was moot. You just got to read those next.
Okay. Legends. I've read Revan, Razor's Edge, Hut Gambit, Paradise Snare, Darth Plagueis, and Into the Void. Oh, and Allegiance. I forgot I read that. Yeah.
What an eclectic collection. You truly have found no one single lane to stick to.
That's because every time I'm like, hey, Discord, what should I read? Everyone's like, this one. And I'm like, okay. And then I read it and it's not related to anything else. And I just keep going like that.
Well, I mean, it's because, again, you've been in this place of like, it's hard. Because Cole, feel free to disagree with me on this. Mm. I don't truly think, outside of series, if you're looking at just individual things, I don't think anything in Legends truly is required reading outside of maybe Heir to the Empire and the Thrawn trilogy. And that even then is coming more from a place of like pedigree rather than, and it like cultural significance rather than in-universe significance. Because I think you could pick up any Star Wars book, the first book of any series, and have, and follow what's going on and be able to realize, and at least if you have an ounce of critical thinking, be able to be like, oh, this takes place after Return of the Jedi, but the Empire's still around. And then it's like, you know, if you've got that critical thought, odds are good you'll want to do more investigation. So all of it becomes, it's unfortunate that it is so difficult to find a place, because you know, people who love Star Wars, it's like, oh, I don't want to get this wrong. I don't want to read something out of order and pick the wrong thing. I think a lot of people like to think of Legends as a long series, and it's kind of is, but it's also kind of not. You can kind of start whatever is interesting to you.
Totally. Yeah, like you said, it's like, as long as you don't, you know, jump in the middle of a series, it's
yeah.
I mean, I think it's probably harder to start with something like the Legacy of the Force or Fate of the Jedi. They're like so deep into the timeline. I
would imagine, yeah.
And was at the point in time whenever it was more serialized. There's definitely more baggage going on, but even those, I mean, I'm sure you'd be fine.
Right, and see, to me, that's where I would make the distinction, is once Del Rey takes over for publishing, the main there do become large ongoing series. And that's when you need to start worrying about that, where it's like you do have to jump into, like, because Bantam was all about trilogies or standalones. So basically it's like you could pick up the Truce of Bakura, the New Rebellion, and you might miss a few references here or there, but odds are good it's going to be fine. And it's like Cole said, as long as you're not starting in the middle of a trilogy, you're going to be fine. If you pick up a random Del Rey Legend Star Wars book, though, it's statistically pretty likely that it is from, especially, you know, New Jedi Order is an outlier and completely throws off the count in terms of statistically pulling a book from a series at random.
Well, that's the thing, is I want to get into New Jedi Order, but I feel like I'm not ready yet, you know?
Well, and and I would, while I think you can start wherever, like I've told you when you came to me a couple of years ago, whatever, and said, I want to read New Jedi Order. I think if you want to get the most, if you really love Star Wars, which isn't to say you don't, if you do just start with New Jedi Order, but if you want to get the most out of it, you got to start somewhere else. Yeah. You do have to do some homework.
And that's, I guess, the big question for me is, I want to get to New Jedi Order. What is the homework I should do to prepare myself to eventually get to that point?
Okay.
Because so because right now, I've been picking and choosing, like, one-offs that, or things that you've read on Abro Skywalker's that I'm like, okay, well, there's 3 books in this series. Like one day I will get to Rebel Dawn. I know that because I've read the first 2 and I really liked them. So that one's like
an easy
that
pick.
one's that one. I don't know if it's what I'll read next, but that one is definitely going to get read, I would say, soon, because I would like to finish the series and check that off the list. But I guess other than Rebel Dawn, the question is, what should I start reading after Rebel Dawn to try and get into the Legends Mind Palace, to be able to get into the New Jedi Order Mind Palace?
Well, I'd say if you're shooting for New Jedi Order, probably the best thing to do is the Thrawn Trilogy, Heir to the Empire, Dark Horse Rising. Like, that's your base. Like,
I'm literally going to take notes during this conversation.
That's your foundation for the post Return of the Jedi stories in Star Wars in Legends. Like, everything is based around that. It was the first thing written, basically, aside from Splinter of the Mind's Eye and the Han Solo adventures and the Lando adventures. That's where everything starts. Even if there's stuff before that, and you could read the stuff that takes place before that too. But that would definitely be the place I would start, and that'll give you, just a good foundation for everything, and it's good.
It is just good, and I generally agree with that, because even though this is gonna pain Cole probably to hear me say, as much as I adore the X-Wing series, Rogue and Wraith Squadrons both, when it comes to New Jedi Order, they're not that important. All told, a lot of the characters are either characters who come to prominent that a lot of characters in New Jedi Order that are from X-Wing a lot of times come to prominence in other ways as well before they get to X-Wing, and you will miss a few characters about halfway through New Jedi Order. There's a couple books that focus on some of the, or have feature some of those characters heavily, but they're introduced there on some level, you know? So if you are really into that kind of military hard sci-fi as Star Wars can be, that kind of writing, and that's a story yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, which is not that much.
it is like hard military fiction though. Like Michael Stackpole especially is very into, in a very granular way, describing dogfights in space, which can be really cool. But sometimes you are just kind of like, all right, I'm gonna kind of skim through this. Did anybody die in that chapter? No, exactly. Like you can read it in your head as just pew 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 3 times, done. Wraith Squadron, I find that Aaron Olson strikes a better balance between the combat, the dogfighting, and the character stuff. And I feel like he's considered one of the greats. He was taken, as Cole and I lament, like every other week on Aurora Skywalkers, he was taken from us too soon and could have given us so much more good Star Wars. But, so yeah, I think those are probably the biggest. That's probably the biggest series that comes before the Thrawn trilogy, chronologically.
And I would recommend the X-Wing books, even as like your pre New Jedi Order homework, because both Michael Stackpole and Aaron Alston write books in New Jedi Order.
They do. Some of my favorite New Jedi Order books are actually written by Mike Stackpole. That is probably a controversial opinion, I think, for some people, but I really do love those.
That's the second 2 books, right?
Yep, 2 and 3.
Yeah. Aaron Alston's still come to way later, but they're two of my favorites of the whole thing. Big surprise.
Yeah, you do. I mean, if you want to pick up on a lot of the good Star Wars jokes, you read the X-Wing series.
Okay. That's also important, you know?
I love Corran Horn, but the man is a joke on his own. He is a joke.
And if we're going to talk about the X-Wing series as a whole, you also kind of have to include iJedi as like an addendum.
And see, I understand, like, this is where I'm afraid we're going to lose you and the listeners, because it's like, okay, yeah, you have to include iJedi as an addendum, because Corran Horn does play a major part in that book, and also those 2 books that I mentioned.
Is iJedi after X-Wing? Is that when I should read it? Where in the X-Wing journey should I read iJedi?
Is it after
you should read iJedi after...
Is it after all the X-Wing books except for Mercy Kill? I forget.
I think so. Maybe not Starfighters of Adamar. I don't think Starfighters of Adamar is really required for that, because Corran's not in that at all. But you actually need to read iJedi after the Jedi Academy trilogy.
Okay.
Because
there is an order of operations here.
Yes, because
See, this is the knowledge I need. I'm literally taking notes like I'm in school right now.
I do get frustrated on, like, any Star Wars subreddit when I see people asking, like, where do I begin with Legends? And it's like, I need to catch myself more, because it is like, it's easy whenever you're in it to be like, oh yeah, obviously iJedi is like a retelling of the Jedi Academy trilogy from a different point of view and all this stuff, but it's like, this is not common knowledge, and if you try to go to the Wikipedia pages for this stuff, you're going to get lost and overwhelmed so fast. Through no fault of the Wook, of course. They're all wonderful. It's super comprehensive, but therein lies the problem, is that it's all there. It's all there, and it's overwhelming. But, yeah, without spoiling anything, iJedi is... half of it, roughly, is kind of a retelling of the Jedi Academy trilogy from a different point of view. So you want to read Jedi Academy first. And now, I guess this would be my first kind of mood-based recommendation. If you're looking for that kind of really, not crunchy's the wrong word, but like foundational, cultural touchstone of a series, Thrawn. Start there. Heir to the Empire. Those books are truly phenomenal. They're not everyone's cup of tea, but I think they're really good.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't vibe with Zahn's writing, I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. But you've already read.
I've read the first. I liked Allegiance. I read the first Canon Thrawn, and I really liked that. I liked the second Canon Thrawn too, just not as much. So
Then
I think
you're gonna have no
I'll
problems.
like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll have no problems because he writes the same way.
Yeah.
In both
Like
both
I
timelines.
loved the first Canon Thrawn. The second
That's
one
incredible.
was kind of boring. Like the second one, I was reading
definitely
it while on the podcast, so we went through my whole like thought process with that one. The second one was good, but it was like drawn out. It was kind of weird. But I liked Allegiance a lot, and I liked the first Canon Thrawn.
If you like those, you're going to be just fine. Heir to the Empire, it would be a great place to start. And they are some of the few Legends books that have unabridged audiobooks.
Oh my god.
Yes, so that is
Wow.
another big plus. And that's, I mean, honestly, that is another huge hurdle for a lot of people, where it's like...
Well, that's been
they
the thing,
don't-
too, is with Canon, what I do a lot is I'll buy an audiobook. Like, when I'm in the mood for Star Wars, I'll buy an audiobook or get it from the library. And I have a 45-minute commute to work and then another 45 minutes back. So, like, I can knock out good chunks of Star Wars books just driving to work.
Just driving.
And that's the thing with
Exactly.
Legends is, like, I have to physically... Which I prefer physically reading a lot of the times, but I do not have anywhere near as much time to do it. So the fact that
Exactly.
there's an unabridged audiobook when I have a 45-minute commute, that's nice.
And
Yeah.
the X-Wing books, they're working on them. The first one
Yes.
has one now, and the second one is going to have one next month, right?
Next month, I think.
Yeah.
Very pretty soon. I think I want to say it's early April, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the date is, but it's definitely April.
But yeah, so that's another huge point in the Thrawn trilogy's favor, if that's something that is important to you. But if you're looking for something that's kind of relies a little bit on Thrawn, but not really, not as a character, but that trilogy, the Jedi Academy trilogy, I think, is a fun place to start. It's kind of got a reputation as being a little too goofy, as Kevin J. Anderson usually is. I love the man. I love his books, but I'll be the first to criticize him as well, you know, where it's like, there's just a lot of weird stuff, but the overall narrative, the story, I think, is really good. The Jedi Academy trilogy, it's the story of the Foundation. It's the story of basically Luke combing the galaxy, trying to find Force sensitives to come to his Jedi Academy.
Gotcha.
And kind of the story of the foundation of that.
Yeah, and it establishes a bunch of long-running characters going forward. Like, not everyone in the book is going to be important, but there definitely are Jedi like characters there that are going to push forward up through the end, basically.
And
So,
basically, in some cases,
it's a foundation for a lot of those characters.
in some cases, yeah, Cole said it enough. I don't need to say anything more. I don't want to spoil anything.
I forgot, somehow I missed this on my Goodreads scoop. I did also read Kenobi, and I liked that one a lot.
John Jackson Miller, unfortunately, didn't write a ton in Legends. He was more of a comics guy in Legends. Knight Errant is a good book. Definitely not imperative for New Jedi Order.
Yeah.
It's
Very much a
good,
standalone there.
Yeah. It's kind of a standalone in pretty much every way, like in terms of just real world writing and also chronologically. It's got like nothing for like 1,000 years on either side.
Love it.
It's really in a weird
It's in
spot.
a void by itself.
Into the Void.
I still can't believe you've read that one.
I haven't even read that
yeah.
No.
It's one of the ones. My library does not have that many unabridged Star Wars Legends audiobooks, and that's one they had. So I said, okay.
Just because there aren't that many of them, period. I
Yeah.
can't blame your library for
and
that.
the
So
later
that's-
era have them.
And that's what they had, and I read it, and it was a good book, but it wasn't a good Star Wars book. You know what I mean? Like, it was just
Yeah.
It was so early that you're like, this isn't even Star Wars. Like, this rips as like sci-fi, but as like Star Wars, this is not the same universe.
Right, it's a sci-fi novel where they have the Force.
Yeah.
Like, where they have magic. And that's kind of been kind of one of the things that's held me back. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. But yeah, Jedi Academy, I think, would be another good place to go.
Okay.
No audiobooks for those, or no full audiobooks for those.
Right.
I gotta hit up Thrift Books. Please sponsor us.
We haven't harped on that in a long time. I think it's because I kind of
This is the
quietly
time.
accepted
This is the episode.
they were never going to sponsor us. Yeah, I'm looking at my. Well, it's hard too because it's like I want you to get to New Jedi Order. I really do. I love it. I love it.
I want weird. Here's what I'm craving right now: lore and weird stuff.
Okay, so I think, like, lore-wise, I think the next most important, and also got some weird stuff in it that I don't even know, Ben hasn't touched it yet either, is the Corellian Trilogy.
No, I haven't touched it.
Oh.
It's, like, later in the timeline than Thrawn or the Jedi Academy, and it introduces a bunch of stuff that does come into play farther down the line for quite a bit.
It's probably one of the latest. It's the latest trilogy for sure, right? In the timeline, because the Solo kids are like Jason and Jaina and Anakin Solo are all cognizant like characters.
So when
They're
are
kids,
when are Jason and Jaina and Anakin introduced?
Jason and
Last
Jaina,
Command.
or introduced in Last Command, which is the
last
Thrawn
one.
book.
Okay.
And then
Okay, that's
Anakin
been a big question
is Dark
too
Empire.
because I hear these characters all the time, but I never knew where they came from, even though I knew they were important. So that's good to know.
Well, and the thing is, they don't really become majorly important until New Jedi Order. They're kind of like plot points for a lot of the stuff they're in. With the exception of if you're looking
B plots.
Yeah, they're B plots or they get kidnapped. Or there's kidnapping attempts. That's kind of the whole thing with them. If you're looking for weird stuff, though...
Yeah, I love weird. I'm vibing with weird right now.
It'll be backwards. The Crystal Star by Vonda McIntyre.
That is... the fun fact about that is that's the first Star Wars book I ever bought with my own money, and then I lost it and never read it.
Oh, and it's got one of the best covers. The art on that is great.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's truly... truly wonderful. Drew Struzan does not have a bad painting in him. I don't think. All of his art, I mean, even for movies like that came out in the 80s that I've never heard of, I'm just like, you didn't have to go so hard for that.
It's like, oh man,
No
I
one's
don't even
heard
know
of
what this
this
movie
movie.
is, but that poster's awesome.
They always are.
Crystal Star is definitely good, and it's weird. I think it's pretty. Most people don't
liked
agree.
it too. Yeah, it's
why I
controversial. It's controversial because again, it's people. I think a lot of it is from the point of view of the Solo kids, and I think that's something that a lot of people aren't a huge fan of. But it's like it's fine. But for one-offs that are, I don't know, the one-offs tend to actually not be that important from an overall story standpoint.
Crystal Star has basically no relevance going forward.
Unless you're playing Jedi Outcast. Because the Reborn are actually a split or from part of the Empire Reborn. Whatever.
But in the grand narrative of Legends books, it is a one-off. So,
yes.
But it is weird.
So
take it how you will. No audiobook.
Right.
If you're looking for weird and lore, might I recommend you the Truce at Bakura? Because while it is pretty insular, it literally starts like a week or something after the end of Return of the Jedi. It is like the earliest.
Quick turnaround.
It is the earliest thing in Legends, or in post Return of the Jedi Legends.
Like the Rebel fleet is still like over Endor, like doing cleanup basically.
Right. So that's where that starts. And it's got plenty of weird stuff. Kind of extragalactic invaders from... They're not really extragalactic, but from like wild space, the unknown regions. So I'm into that. Definitely weird. They've got some weird tech.
Okay, here's a question. Where are the Yuzhong Vaughn? Where are they in all of this?
They are... Where are they in the galaxy? Because that's the New Jedi Order.
Okay, is that New Jedi Order? Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yes, the Yuzhong Vong are not...
I want to learn about those dudes too, so I'm glad I'm already on that track.
Yes. The thing is, the Yuzhong Vong are not... outside of retcons, I don't think are in anything before Vector Prime. But I mean, there were things that actually, not going to get into that. There is a comic, No Manor, that Crimson Empire. No Manor is in Crimson Empire. But anyway, yeah, New Jedi Order is Yuuzhan Vong.
Okay.
But
okay.
Truce of Bakura, I think it does come back pretty heavily for like a hot second in New Jedi Order later on. In fact, it's basically got a sequel. New Jedi Order.
That's the thing about New Jedi Order, is that it was written after all the Bantam stuff, and it does its best to like at least acknowledge the existence of all of it.
Of pretty much everything.
Some of it's really important, some of it's not. Like I said, Crystal Star doesn't really come up, but there is this really nice homage sequel, whatever you want to call it, to Truce at Bakura, and I feel like there's another one that there's like a kind of a sequel thing-ish too, but I'm drawing a blank because they kind of like visit a bunch of different stuff. Oh, there's a thing with the Black Fleet Crisis in one of the books.
Yep. Yeah.
Which again
that's another good one.
Another series that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but I think it's really great. It has some really weird stuff in it.
I know. I can't recommend it to you as like bare minimum homework for New Jedi Order, but again, that is much more along the hard military sci-fi edge. Michael P. QB McDowell did not write anything else for Star Wars except maybe a short story for West End at some point. I think we might have talked about that on Abro Skywalkers at one point, but he didn't do a lot in Star Wars.
But another standalone that's lore and important: Courtship of Princess Leia.
Yes.
I can't tell.
Please write that one down.
No, I'm not. We're not messing with you.
No.
Courtship
It's actually it is not. It's got some memes in it, but it's not nearly as much of a meme as everybody wants to lead you to believe that it is.
Okay.
Like there is so much cool stuff in that book.
Yeah, so much cool stuff comes out of that that's important. And like character wise and like I said, lore. And if you're wanting to be like real technical about it, you should read it after the 7th X-Wing book, because it's kind of a sequel.
Don't have to.
You don't have to.
Okay, Cole, I gotta take issue with you calling it a sequel. It's really not.
I know it's not.
The fun fact here, the fun little bit of Legends, real meta lore here. The Courtship of Princess Leia. Han is off on a quest. Or, no, he's not. He has come back from a mission in the Courtship of Princess Leia. At the beginning, he's come back from a mission. And at the end of that book, that mission is fulfilled. Well, the Raid Squadron books, X-Wing books 5, 6, and 7, are the story of that mission. And so they are actually, though they were written after, they actually culminate with a book that came out a few years before.
See, this is why Legends is so confusing to somebody trying to get into it in 2022.
It's needlessly complicated, but it's also one of those things that it's like, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
But emotionally, it matters as a story. You know what I mean? That's what sucks. Is I wish I could just be like, this is number one in a series, I'll read it. But Star Wars brain is stupid. I'm like, I gotta know everything first.
It does matter. So that's up to you. I think read Courtship before I finished the X-Wing books. In fact, I am almost positive. Didn't feel that I really missed out on much.
It's not a big important thing, really. It's something that only matters like the very beginning and the very end of the book, basically. And it's
if you're looking for something that's
just giving you context. It's like
if you're looking for something
context.
that's low impact, if you want something that's low impact and doesn't require a ton of commitment, I think Courtship is a totally valid one to pick up. Cool. Additionally, this is kind of making a bit of a left turn here. If you're looking to get a New Jedi Order, and if you want something to look forward to, there is a standalone book. You know where I'm going, Cole? You know where I'm going?
I think I do.
Now that I've read it, I can safely recommend it because it does not spoil anything.
It's true.
I think you should read Rogue Planet.
I don't even know if I've heard of that one.
Rogue Planet.
A Obi-Wan and Anakin story. Post episode 1.
Between episode 1 and 2. I ended up really enjoying it. It ties in very heavily to the New Jedi Order, but not in an obvious way.
Right.
That's actually a book that they show up in or are mentioned in, but don't appear in. And of course, this happens 50 some odd years before they actually invade the galaxy. So I hope I feel like I've already said too much, but again, another just great standalone. If you want something that is standalone, but also important.
Yeah, it also gives you some nice prequel era content to get into.
Prequel era content.
Exactly. It's beautiful. You'll love young little Anakin in that because it's literally like a year maybe after Phantom Menace, maybe even
something
less.
like that. It's
not
Does
long.
he
It's
still?
not long.
Is he still happy in it?
Mostly, yeah.
Yes and no.
Oh my god.
Yes and
I
no.
mean, you can't have a book with Anakin as a major character and not be foreshadowing dark stuff.
Well, yeah, but I'm like, he's so cute in episode 1, and then in episode 2, they're like, here's this 19-year-old fascist, and it's like, dang.
more Phantom Menace than Attack of the Clones. So
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It's got a lot of good stuff in it. Now, I understand. Again, this is another example of things being just a little bit too complicated for their own good. I think that some essential reading before New Jedi Order is the Hand of Thrawn duology. Because it sets up the state of the galaxy. At the end, it sets up the, we'll say, galactic peace before the Yuuzhan Vong invade. And it's again, Timothy Zahn, really, really great. The second book, Visions of the Future, is one of the longest Star Wars books, I believe. It's definitely 500 plus pages.
there are full audiobooks for these.
Yeah, I think that at one point this was going to be a.
You want me to tell the story of this?
This is going to be.
I know the history. I know the history on this. If you want me to tell you.
Please give us the history.
Yeah,
please give us the history.
So this was like Bantam knew they were going to be losing the Star Wars license at the very end of this time period because Phantom Menace was on the horizon and Del Rey was getting the contract for Star Wars going forward, and so they wanted to like close the era out and have Timothy Zahn come back and write another story. It was going to be a single novel. And they had him start writing it. And he's like, crap, this is going to be more than one novel. Or it's going to be the longest Star Wars novel ever written.
This is the two books together.
That's like some Stephen King It stuff right there.
They're both massive books. So they wanted him just to write the one book. He started writing it, realized it was going to be too big. And then just by happenstance, Phantom Menace was supposed to come out in 98. And it got delayed. So they're like, we've got another year, so you can write another book. And he's like, yes, that's what I needed. And then it turns out, like, writing the second book, he's like, crap, this is enough for 3 books. And he just had to cram 2 books into one. So it's basically a trilogy in 2 books.
It is 864 pages of Star Wars between the 2 hardcover versions.
Yeah, that is
but again, like
hot and sexy.
Like Cole said, that just clicked with me. There are full audiobooks. So again, this is, I don't know if it's something if you
most
were
of
able
Zahn's
to go back and
books
forth
have had full audiobooks done at this point.
Because again, the prestige.
Right.
He's just he's royalty in Star Wars. So yeah, I think those are kind of must reads. I do weirdly think you could get away with I think you'd be missing a lot, but I think you could get away with only reading Timothy Zahn's Star Wars books and then reading New Jedi Order because
that feels too risky.
It is very risky. You're missing out on a lot, and if you want the full picture. But that's more for the listeners who maybe are hearing everything we're saying and being like, "Oh my god, this is a lot. Maybe I don't want to do this." Having a panic attack
in their car.
Right. It's totally valid to read the 5 Timothy Zahn Star Wars Legends books in the Bantam era read New Jedi Order if that's what you want to do, and then go back and fill things in as you want. Like that's totally a way you could do it if you want to at least understand, because I feel like Timothy Zahn is the one who got to write the novels that really altered the state of the galaxy, because a lot of the other trilogies and a lot of the other standalones are kind of like Monster of the Week type things, where it's like, here is the Imperial Warlord for this trilogy, we're going to take care of him, and then wrap it all up before the end of it. And it's like, it's good, interesting, but you know, it's like at the end of it, they're still kind of at war with the Empire. The war with the Empire, I hate to spoil too much, but the war with the Empire ends in the Hand of Thrawn duology. That's where that war is officially over. 25 years after A New Hope, something. It's like
New Jedi Order starts 1980.
You're right. It's like 20. It's like yeah.
So
19. Okay, that tracks.
Yeah, that's probably like your last stop before you get to New Jedi Order, unless you really want to like know the kids, and then you can do Young Jedi,
which
Knights.
I highly recommend. Eva, if you love children and Star Wars,
I know that I read like at least one of those as a kid.
Yep,
and I really liked it as a child.
They are middle grade novels. You know, they're definitely not like young reader, but they're like middle grade young adult novels.
Their covers are so sick, honestly.
They are. I know.
Yeah.
And
again, there are 14 of them.
Yeah.
They go pretty fast. They go pretty
fast, but I think if you wanted to just get a taste and like know the main characters, you could read just the first arc, which is like the first 5 or 6 books.
It's the first 6.
Okay.
But yeah, realistically, you could stop after 6.
It's like that would introduce all the major characters. You're like, okay, I know who these kids are and everything, and then go into New Jedi Order and be like, okay, this is a few years later, and we're going forward. But if you really loved them, you probably love all of them. So, you know.
Right.
Those first 6 books are compiled in 2 different 3-book volumes too, as single books. So, and they're like 300 some pages a piece. So it's about the size of a normal novel. So that's another thing you could add. I would like to posit a hot take, since I kind of think we're reaching the end of Bantam Era Legends before New Jedi Order. If you are like me and you can get impatient, I don't think that it is completely without merit. I don't think it's completely without merit to read Vector Prime and stop, if you can stop yourself. Vector Prime is the first book in the New Jedi Order.
Okay.
It will ruin everything. But I'm seriously telling you that it's like the hard thing will be to not read the next one.
Right.
But if you want the taste, and you kind of want to get a feel for, like, because there's something to be said. I mean, Star Wars has shown us that this kind of out of order storytelling has some merit to it. You know, it's like there's something to be said about knowing where a story is going to end up before you get to that point. I think if you wanted to find Vector Prime and read it, you're well within your rights to do so. I think it's a fantastic book. Big galaxy changing, earth shattering events in that book.
It was a statement of a novel.
It was incredibly controversial at the time. But I think it is, I think it's some very, very good Star Wars. Sets up the New Jedi Order perfectly, and could give you an idea of things you might want to keep an eye out for as you kind of backfill. Again, not necessarily something I recommend, but if you wanted to do it, I say go for it.
Possibility.
Possibility, because I do think it, especially if you were to just get a few of these books under your belt and then go into Vector Prime, because I think it's a fantastic book. I love it. It's one of my favorite Star Wars books for sure. Just some great characters, and I don't think there are any long-standing main characters. There's one, maybe one kind of central character you might not know if you were to do that, but again, he gets backfilled if you read specifically Jedi Academy Trilogy. All the other characters, I think you'd at least know by name and reputation. But that's kind of... I don't think we've missed anything, at least leading up to New Jedi Order. There's some other kind of... I am a fan of what I and some others like to refer to as the Kalista Trilogy. It is not an official trilogy. The books are not actually linked in any way aside from the fact that a woman named Kalista is a character in the three of them. Those are Children of the Jedi. Right. They are... I'm just repeating what others say. This is not my opinion. They are considered to be some of the dregs of Legends. They are considered to be some of the... Like, the three of them together are considered to be some of the worst Legends books, by and large. Children of the Jedi, I think, is kind of in the run. Not that it has nothing of value, but I think might actually be in the running for worst that I've read, at least. Because every time I think about it, I'm just like, the bones of a good story are here. I just don't know what the heck happened in the book. Like, I just can't follow it. It's just boring. But Darksaber, I think Darksaber is actually pretty good. That is more Kevin J. Anderson stuff. Any of these, you could pick up and just be like, I'm just going to read this one. Because even though Callista's in them, just seriously go on her Wikipedia page. Go the top of her Wikipedia page.
Right.
Be careful there. Because
maybe just ask somebody. Because I know things that I wish I didn't. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But
because the Kalista Trilogy, as it is, like all three of those books have stuff that does come into play further down the timeline past New Jedi Order. So I wouldn't call those essential for that, but
what's
eventually.
The third one?
The third one is Planet of Twilight.
is Planet of Twilight. I actually... That is very weird. It is by the same author. It's by Barbara Hambly, who wrote Children of the Jedi.
It has a buff hut.
It does have a buff hut. What's it? Baldorian? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Beldorian. Because I was confusing it with Gazarian, who is the Night Sister from anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, Buff Hut, I think it is definitely the better of Barbara Hambly's two Star Wars novels.
I need to reread it. It's been a long time.
Planet of Twilight, I think, is significantly better than Children of the Jedi. Just in terms of just like, I can follow what's happening. But again, Children of the Jedi gives us some of my weirdly favorite elements from Legends. Belsavis, I freaking love that planet. No idea why. Because like the cool things about it weren't even established there. But a lot of cool stuff. And even it does kind of come back in New Jedi Order, but only just. Like, seriously, I think the thing that it comes back as a part of feels very out of left field no matter what. Cole, I mean, would you agree with me on that?
If you're referring to what I'm thinking you're referring to, yeah.
It's like, all right, this is kind of connected to Children of the Jedi. How is it connected to this? To the story that is happening now?
It is a deep, like, pull, like, what the heck is happening. But, like, it's one of those things that when it happens, if you know what's going on, you're like, this is so wild. I can't believe they're doing this.
Yeah, it's really good.
If not, you're just pretty confused, probably.
Not in a bad way. You can follow what's going on, but you're like, you become, why is this happening?
The significance is not lost on you.
Yes. Well, Eva, I think we've just thrown a metric crap ton of information at you.
I have notes, and I am going to condense them into a list of the books that I am going to read in order next.
Beautiful.
Yes.
I am so happy to hear that.
Once I am done, I will take a photo, I will put it in our Discord, and if there are any corrections, I will embrace them with open arms. but only from I think Ben, Cole, and Dakota. Because if I start taking the opinions of our patrons into this, baby, I'm never gonna get through Legends.
No, because you've got let's see, you've got Tom that would suggest. I bet Tom or Odie would suggest that something like Splinter of the Mind's Eye is required reading. Mogo has only read half of Death Troopers. No, that's not true. He has read the Revenge of the Sith novelization at this point.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people regard to be canon anyway. So those novelizations are tricky.
I have the novelizations for the movies, and then I like the kids versions. And I have them on my Legends shelf because they came out during that time. But I'm also it's a novelization of a canon movie, how different is it gonna be?
Right. I have the audiobooks sorted into my canon audiobook library because it is just how different can it really. I mean, I guess the Revenge of the Sith novelization tells you how different it can really be. But it's
not that you would know.
No, I wouldn't know. I've never read it. Well, because right now, I picked up a random one-off. I picked up The New Rebellion the other day. And again, that's one of those ones that I don't hear a lot about. I think it's good. I'm about 100 pages in, and I'm like, this is good. I want to know what's happening.
It's got me in it, kind of.
You what?
It's got me in it, kind of. Cole Fardreamer.
Oh, yeah. I thought the same thing. I thought the same thing when I read it last night. I'm just like, Cole. I'm in the a few of the movies actually. So
yeah, just a couple.
Yeah, I don't think there is a. I'm sure there's a character somewhere. A whole TV show. Although I will say my hair currently is longer than Obi-Wan's ever was. I think so. I've definitely passed even Attack of the Clones Obi-Wan hair.
Well, his only went down to his shoulders.
Yeah. I sometimes long for those days. I could just get my hair cut, but I just haven't. Anyway, not important. What is important is that Legends is great. I'm very glad that we've had the opportunity to do this. I hope that it's been helpful to others, maybe, as well.
And if you want to see my takeaway from this conversation, you can join our Patreon.
Patreon.com/TheSkyHoppers Podcast, baby. $1 a month. Gets you into that Discord.
Do you have any idea where you're going to go next? What your next book would be, probably? Based on what we've told you?
Okay. I think the default of, the next book I read is Rebel Dawn, just to finish the trilogy, get it out of the way.
Good point.
Totally reasonable.
After that, I was thinking Thrawn Trilogy, followed by the Jedi Academy Trilogy. And then...
Seems very reasonable.
Then getting into... X-Wing and iJedi and Courtship.
Yep, that seems like a totally reasonable path.
And then I might throw a couple of the one-offs in there just so that I'm not reading 7 books of the same series in a row just to mix it up for my brain.
Well, if you're doing what I was doing, I kind of did it. I did it weirdly because I was going, again, I had my own knowledge that I had back in, 2015, 2014, whenever I started reading Star Wars books again. I had my own knowledge to that point, but I was kind of going rogue. So I would read a one-off, then I would read a book from the X-Wing series, and then I would read a book from the New Jedi Order. So I was...
What?
I was kind of all over the place. But I do kind of recommend doing that, not burning yourself out on one thing unless you are really vibing with something, which honestly, with something like X-Wing, or really any of the things you just listed, you could very easily find yourself super into it and just want to go one after the other.
I think the only one that I really am probably gonna have to break up would be X-Wing, just because there's so many of them. But I could see myself just going Thrawn Trilogy back to back to back to back.
And X-Wing's easy to break up into smaller chunks because the first 4 books are an arc that finishes, and they're all by one author, and then the next 3 are a different arc that follow it immediately, but they're by a different author and they're a new story basically.
With different characters,
and
so
mostly different characters. So there's a good break point there, and then so that's the first 7 books, and then there's like 2 standalone ones that take place later. And you could definitely, put some books in between those that make sense
to break it up.
I honestly, I mean, excuse me, is there anything that keeps you from reading? I mean, I've only read it the one time. I'm sure you've read it more, Cole. Is there anything that really keeps you from reading Starfighters of Adamar just at will?
I don't think so. I mean, they might talk about some of the stuff that happened in the previous X-Wing books, but it is really a standalone.
Right, and Star Wars books
are, at any point, it doesn't really matter in the grand story of stuff, but it's great.
Yeah, I mean, that's another one, Eva, that I think, well, if you're reading the X-Wing books purposely, I maybe wouldn't recommend it, but if you felt like it, you could just grab Starfighters of Adamar if you see it somewhere by Aaron Alston. It's an X-Wing book, but it's
book 9? Or
yeah,
8?
because Isar's Revenge is 8.
Okay, yeah.
Isar's Revenge is weird.
And I think you know this probably, but Mercy Kill, the final X-Wing book, is after like nearly everything timeline.
I haven't read Mercy Kill yet,
so
because Cole keeps telling me it's not that spoilery. I don't trust him. I don't want to read something I don't want to read.
I don't think you should read it until after you've read Fate of the Jedi. I don't think it spoils a lot of stuff, but it takes place there, and it follows some events that are there, so it's just going to be better there. And also, it's it's Aaron Alston doing this thing after a bunch of other stuff that's way heavier and consequential. So it's a nice palate cleanser.
Even though it's called Mercy Kill. It's like, what could that
I didn't say it
mean?
wasn't emotionally devastating like Aaron Alston always does, but
right.
Aaron Alston is an author who. And Ev, I can't wait for you to experience this, where you're just like, oh my god, this guy's so funny. I love all these characters. And then something happens to some of them.
Absolutely,
and you're like,
emotionally destroy you.
It's just like, how could you do that? There's one scene in particular in those Wraith books. And Cole, I know you know what I'm talking about. I don't even need to give you any sort of context. Yep.
So when do I read Mercy Kill? Just never?
That's what I've accepted. Okay, never.
So Mercy Kill, if you ever want to get to it, like I said, it really is like a standalone adventure, basically. That's like it's almost like what movies are come out now, like the most recent Scream, or it's like a legacy sequel almost that takes place. It's like some of the same characters, but mostly a new cast, way after all the other events. So you'd read it after New Jedi Order, after Legacy of the Force, and after Fate of the Jedi, which are the 3 long series at the end of the timeline.
That's 37 books, I think. 19 plus 9 plus 9.
Yeah.
Oh it's no.
Plus the Swarm War.
It's 40. It's 40 plus Swarm War. Swarm War.
And there's a few others in there too, but yeah.
Darkness.
So it is deep in the thing. But the reason it makes sense to wait that long is because in both New Jedi Order and those other 2 series, Aaron Alston writes books on those too. So some of the characters that are like interspersed throughout all of them continue to show up and then play a part in that story. So you could just jump in and read it if you wanted to. If you're like, it's like, I need more Wraith action, you could do it, but it's going to be way more satisfying if you wait.
Okay.
Even I've been too afraid.
That's good to know. That I should not actually read all of the X-Wing series. I should read the first 9 in the X-Wing series and leave 10 for when I'm 50.
Yeah,
Well, Cole said it. It was understated, but I think it serves just how late it truly is. Mercy Kill came out in 2012.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, and
the other ones were
the buyout was 2014.
99 or whatever it was.
Yeah. A lot of stuff happens. I think oh shoot, I lost my train of thought.
But Aaron Alston writes like some of the most Star Wars books, I think, of like any other author. Like he's right up there because he did 5 X-Wing books, 2 New Jedi Order, 3 Legacy of the Force, 3 Fate of the Jedi. There's a lot of books that he wrote.
That's a lot of books.
Throughout everything. Yeah. Like Zahn's is up there too, and
Troy Denning's got to be up there.
Yeah, he's got to be up there, and Michael Reeves is probably up there.
Michael Reeves is
quietly
great.
Michael Reeves is great.
We talk about Michael Reeves all the time on Abro Skywalkers. He wrote the MedStar duology. He wrote Death Star. He wrote the Coruscant Knights trilogy, Shadowhunter, Shadow Games. And he likes to collaborate with a bunch of different authors too, or primarily Steve Perry, and then I think Maya Catherine Bonhoeff. Can I get the soul read? Yes, I can. Off of Shadow Games, but he's another one he has what we call the Reeves verse, where he's got like and you'll notice that almost all Star Wars Legends authors do this. And canon ones do it too, where they have their group of characters and they will try to get them into everything they can.
Right.
Which creates so much cognitive dissonance for me, because I complain anytime Dave Filoni wants to put Ahsoka somewhere, but the stuff I grew up, it's double standards. The stuff I grew up with, people doing the same crap all the time.
High five.
The only difference is I tweeted earlier this week, the only difference between a good Star Wars cameo and a bad Star Wars cameo are whether or not I want it. So
I was so mad that you were on private now, so I can't retweet that, because I felt that deep in my bones.
And it's just like, I'm sorry, listeners, I really am, but that is the truth of it. But again, I hope this wasn't been too much info. I'm glad you've got some solid notes and pulled some good info.
I feel like this is the most direction I've had with this.
And of course, for everyone, Eva, for listeners, I want to restate. This is just a suggestion. You can read whatever you want. It truly doesn't matter. You could just read the New Jedi Order if you want to. But again,
this is like a nice starting place, because I have just been reading ones that I know don't do anything with anything else, and like, that's fine. Well, that's fine. It's like, yeah, I loved Kenobi and Darth Plagueis and Allegiance and whatever. Like, I really liked those books, but I'm also like, okay, how long can I keep reading one-off Legends books before I'm like going insane because I want to talk about the big boy stuff in the Discord?
I do feel like you are missing a lot of what makes Legends great.
Yeah,
you're missing a lot of
and it's like, I've gotten a little bit of a taste. It's like I've gotten a little bit of like the vibes, but I haven't gotten any of the plot, and I want the vibes and the plot.
Oh, I mean, if you want Legends vibes, Bantam era Star Wars, everything we've told you to read, that is it.
Yeah,
that is
almost
my
exclusively
Star Wars.
Bantam era stuff. What we talked about, like,
yes,
like the only Del Rey thing we really talked about was Rogue Planet, and then New Jedi Order itself. Everything else is all Bantam stuff, and that's. All the other, anything else in that time frame that you're interested in, you could totally read.
Yeah.
Like, if you see any of those, or like, you're like, hey, what about this one? It's like, oh yeah, that's a great book. It doesn't really matter, but it's good.
Let's read it.
Mm-hmm.
But probably my biggest piece of advice for anyone looking to read Star Wars books, just pick something up, read it, and if you like that author, look for more of their stuff. Like, that's the thing, is like, I have Star Wars authors that I love, like Timothy Zahn, Matthew Stover, Karen Traviss, Aaron Alston. It's like, I know if their name's on the book, I think it's going to be a banger, no matter what. And it's generally, that's the direction it goes. So, I mean, if you read one of these books and you're like, oh, this one was awesome, I loved this one, look for more of their stuff. And maybe they don't have any more, but maybe they do.
That is a great point, because the authors even... They all just, again, it's about vibes. It comes back to vibes. Like, if you want something fun and emotionally destructive, Aaron Alston. If you want something that is maybe just more abrasive than it really needs to be, but also somehow incredibly compelling, Karen Traviss. If you want if you want to read about a major douchebag, just read something by Michael Stackpole. Because he'll write Coronor. I'm kidding. Michael Stackpole, I have heard only wonderful things about that man. I guess I didn't insult him, and I love Corran Horn. I am a staunch Corran Horn. I won't say apologist, because he's kind of a douche, but I do love him. I do love him. I think
he has an arc.
He does. His character development is so good. I cannot wait for you to get to just books 2 and 3 in the New Jedi Order. Very
One
good.
day,
And then
I'm gonna get there.
it'll be sooner than you think.
I'll do all of this work, and then I'll be like, I'm finally at the new Jedi Order, and then I'll be like, oh, there's 19 books in this series, and that'll be that's gonna be a whole different mental gymnastics that I'm gonna work in a few years.
Yeah.
One thing, my last piece of advice, the last piece of advice that I will put out there for the evening, to you and to listeners, don't go too fast. Appreciate it.
Because they're not making any more.
They're not making any more, and while they're all eminently rereadable, well, Cole, yeah. They're all incredibly rereadable, and I get more out of a Legends book every time I read it. More out of a Star Wars book every time I read it. Let's be honest. This is not exclusive to Legends. But you do only get it that first time once. And it's cool because you do get to participate in the air quotes big boy conversations and talk about all these, theories and just plots and stuff. But it's just, it's Star Wars. There's something magical to experiencing it for the first time.
I think it was kind of a blessing that of course, like, I think the first Legends book I read was or pretty early. I mean, I guess podcast listeners could check because it would have been while I was on the show. But man, when I was reading Darth Plagueis and it was summer break, I was just on the floor. I was like laying on the floor of my apartment, glued to that book. I was spending like hours a day reading that bad boy, and I was like, okay, if all of Legends has this vibe, I'm in, brother. Like,
well, you might be a James Luceno fan then.
Here's some weird politics and also the Force, and I said, baby, yes.
You need to look into James Luceno then. I think it's been a long time since I've read this book, but from what I remember, Cloak of Deception is entirely weird politics. Look, Valorum is right there on the cover.
I'm writing that down, baby.
It's the lead up to Phantom Menace, basically.
I also think I almost bought that at McKay's the last time I was there, but then I was like, I don't know where this is on the and I don't want to like Google anything right now in the middle of the store, so I just left. But man,
you could safely read it. You could safely read it. It's like the Phantom Menace prequel.
Yeah, because I saw Qui-Gon on the front in Chancellor Valorum, and I said, "Oh,
ooh,"
and then I was like,
Worm?
Oh, Worm, my boys." My two favorite politicians.
There's a ton of great prequel books too. We didn't even talk about the prequel books that
we did because that's all New Jedi Order.
That'll be our next What Should Ever Read podcast, is just telling me all of the prequel books.
Give you a guide to the prequel era in books.
Yeah.
Oh, this has been a fun episode. I hope listeners, you've enjoyed it as much as I know I have. Do we have anything else we want to say before we get out of here this evening?
I will post my list, but I'm going to wait until the episode's up, so no spoilers for our listeners.
All right, you'll see when it goes up for the patrons.
Yeah.
You'll be aware. Anything else? We want to do our outros.
I'm good.
I think we're good.
Okay. Cole, where can people find you on the internet?
I'm at Mando Wraith on all the social media stuffs, and I'm on Abura Skywalkers with Ben. We just finished up the Mandalorian armor and did an interlude this last week, and we're going to be starting off True Colors here shortly.
Ooh.
Can't wait. Republic Commando 3.
Cole, I've started it. Right back in it. Got the clone feels going on. Evan, we didn't even talk about Republic Commando. I'm telling you, those if you think you feel for clones now, just wait. Just read Republic Commando. You will feel so much more than you ever thought possible. But what about you, Eva? Where are you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Eva Herinkova, EvaHerinkova, and that's it. Which is weird, but that's it.
This podcast exists on Twitter at SW Skyhoppers, and that's where you can follow to find when new episodes go out or get updates for like when they don't go out, like last week. I don't think I tweeted an update, but usually you can assume if there's no episode, there's probably just no episode. You can send us an email, skyharperspodcast@gmail.com. Let us know that you're mad that there was no episode. No one's ever done that, but I think it'd be funny if you did. You can also go to skyharperspodcast.com. You could send us a message there. I guess we have a contact form. I don't think we talk about that very often. I'm working on a review.
And you can also go to skyhopperspodcast.com for whenever I read any of these books, and I'll put my 100 words or less stuff up there.
Review. To date, our most popular posts, always our most popular posts, whenever shares one of their posts on their Twitter. But I'm working on a Mandalorian armor review as one of my legends, because I'm working on my little legends, or just general Star Wars book reviews. I think I can't remember what I've chosen. I'm gonna write reviews probably when I read Star Wars books. But yeah, all that's over there. All the links to our Patreon, links to our Twitter, all lives over yonder on skyharperspodcast.com. And we plugged the Patreon earlier, patreon.com/skyharperspodcast. Just $1 a month. You get to come hang out with us. See all the cool stuff, Mogo's 3D printing. See all of the nonsense that Tom is pulling from the depths of the internet and subjecting us all to. Sometimes it's actually good.
Yeah, true.
But we're always talking about Star Wars. There's always something going on. Like, we have plenty of nonsense channels, but most of the I'm always like shocked at how many channels we have, text channels dedicated specifically to Star Wars.
Yeah, and they're all frequently used too, which is the crazy thing. Like, the only one that's really not used is the animation ones, which I've thought about just folding into the regular TV show ones anyway.
Yeah. I'm wondering if TV show spoilers is a better way to go. We can talk about this later. This is not real. This is not live podcast chat.
Anyway, join our Discord.
In our Discord, it's fun. Yeah, that's everything. I'm making the executive decision. No one has anything else to add, so this is the Skyhoppers podcast signing off.
Somebody get this big walking carpet out of here.